communication we have and all those sectors. So cryptography and secure communication is very important. So let's dive into this so that we can be able to understand it deeper. We'll be able to go through certain subtopics. We'll be able to know the types of cryptographies, what they do, uh, and how to protect yourself from that. But the major thing is that cryptography ensures that you have confidentiality, integrity, authentication, and non-repudiation is achieved within that. We also use it to protect our communication. Like, for example, you have a video call through WhatsApp. So we talk about voice over the internet protocol. How is it being protected? Sometimes when you have that call, either the call logs will be deleted, sometimes in your WhatsApp, or you'll find that the IP address of your device, when you have that communication, is well protected or hidden so that it is not exposed. Also, data from adversaries and so on, they need to be protected so that nobody can be able to tap them or interfere with them or modify them, to ensure that all your communication is well uh, secured. So mostly this cryptography is used in various applications, whether it is banking or any form of transactions where money is involved, then we find that cryptography is used. When you are talking about blockchain technologies where we are using the DOI, um, that is in terms of assigning some unique identities to a transaction. And by the way, it is the best technology that we can be able to use in elections. Why? Because mostly in elections, people tend to be killed even because once they identify that you voted for so and so, yet you had eaten their money. So blockchain technology systems can be able to help in such areas whereby you can create your account with a unique identity, you can vote with a unique identity key, and all your details will be protected without even displaying what is your name, because what can only be showing there is your unique identity, which is called the blockchain identity index for that. And then you have the secure messaging. So in your WhatsApp, in your SMS, in your emails, all the communications are well protected and secured by the use of cryptography. Now let's just watch a piece here for you to understand what is cryptography.
So, what does cryptography signify? The study of secure communication techniques that allow only the sender and intended recipient of a message to read its content is known as cryptography. The term comes from the Greek word kryptos, which means hidden. It is closely linked to encryption, which the process of scrambling plain text into ciphertext and then back again when it's received. So let's see the different types of cryptography and the differences between them. We have three different types of cryptography, that is symmetric, asymmetric, and the one using hash functions. In symmetric cryptography, the same key is used for encryption and decryption. Both the sender and the recipient must have the access to the same common key. Asymmetric cryptography uses two separate keys for encryption and decryption. In an asymmetric crypto system, a public key can be used by a person to encrypt a message so that it can only be decrypted by the intended recipient with their private key. A private key is shared only with the key's initiator. Hash functions. Hash functions are one-way irreversible functions that safeguard data while preventing the recovery of the original message. Hashing is a method of converting a variable length string into a fixed length string. Now let's check what are the main objectives of cryptography. Number 1 is confidentiality, second, non-repudiation, third, integrity, and the fourth is authenticity. So what problems are solved with cryptography? Both data in transit and data at rest can be kept confidential and secure using cryptography. Cryptography guards against repudiation by authenticating senders and recipients. It can secure messages that pass via untrustworthy networks. Cryptographic technologies like SSL or TLS provide confidentiality and integrity protection that can protect communications from malicious eavesdropping and alterations. Cryptography can also be used to ensure authenticity safeguards to implement secure system communication. It also prevents sensitive data stored on the physical medium from being deciphered. Cryptography ensures data integrity protection. So that's all about cryptography. Happy learning!
So I believe that you've gone through what is cryptography, what it does, the connection between the sender and the receiver, because in every communication, one must be the sender and the other must be the receiver. So we talked about two types of keys, the private and public keys. So you can decrypt the document using the public keys, and then provide a private key which will be used by the receiver to unlock or to decrypt the information that you had sent. And that is what normally happens in all our communication. Now, data integrity, for you to have that being achieved, you must ensure that there's no any other person within the middle section is able to open or access that information. So that's why you always find that people say that, oh, there was a message that was sent to me, but it seems like it has been modified by someone, and it was not me who sent the last one. So the question should be, how was the security of that system? So ensure that you understand that concept better. So we've talked about that cryptography ensures you have confidentiality, you have that integrity, and authentication is achieved within that. So protection of communications and so on, we have talked about them. So types of cryptography, as explained there. We are talking about symmetric key cryptography. And we are saying that in symmetric key cryptography, it uses a single key for encryption and decryption. So it does not use two separate, it uses the same. While in asymmetric, it uses a pair of both public and private. So it depends with who is the sender. So the sender will have the public, and then as he sends the information, he sends with a private key to be able to unlock on the other end. The vice versa is also the same. While in symmetric, what you use to encrypt as a private is the same one that will be used to decrypt as a private on the other end. The same can be used to send back the information to the other partner. Then we have the hash functions, which we are saying that it is used to convert input data that you have into a fixed size hash values. For instance, when you are searching for anything through the Google space, what happens to the text that you searched for? It is always hashed. For instance, here, let's look at the Google here. Assume that I come here and I'm searching for testing that what is cryptography, and then I search like this. You see what is here. Is this the same as what is cryptography, the text that we wrote? You can see this text here. It looks so different from what, let me paste it somewhere here. Paste in a word. We search for what is cryptography, but what you see from the search bar is this text here. So this is a ciphered text. or hashed text. That means what? What is cryptography? So by the time you find the text itself there, you must be very keen. Then we use this as a hash text that is used now to hide and protect the information that was searched through the search engine Google. So that is how it is protected. So that what you searched is completely protected before you receive them. So these are hash algorithms for protection. And that is enabled by SSL and TLS. That is secure socket layer of the internet connection. And that's why you'll find that when you are here and you are searching for something, you can see here, this end here, that it says that the connection is secure. Why? Because if you do this, you'll be able to see that the results are being generated by HTTPS, meaning that the SSL is operating here and the certificate here is well available. You can see here and the certificate is valid. You can see here the message saying the certificate is valid in this area here. Certificate is valid, and this is the certificate details. This is the public key. Are you seeing here a message? Public key. Let me do this for you so that you can be able to see that. That is it. So this is a well elaborated thing here. So you can see here that it is issued by Google, and this is the certificate key, and then followed by the public key, which is available here. So that's what we are talking about, types of cryptographies and keys. This is a public key accessible through that end. So by the time you use any technology, you must be able to understand it well. How does it operate? Because for you, you are just seeing the text, what is cryptography. But what happens at the back of the system and the servers is what you need to understand in that picture. Now, let us continue and understand all of them. Now, what are the types of cryptography? Illustrations. Let us look at what are the types of cryptography as properly and clearly illustrated in this section.
Welcome back, aliens. My name is Navin Reddy, and let's continue with the series on blockchain. In this video, we'll talk about types of cryptography. So basically, there are two types. The first one is symmetric key cryptography. The second one is asymmetric key cryptography. Now, as name suggests, the first one should be having symmetric key, and the second one will have two different keys, right? So let's start with the first one. So let's say, assume we have A and B. Now A want to send a message to B. What A will do, A will simply encrypt the message using a key. So let's say that key is K1. So using a key K1, A will encrypt a message. That message will go to B. In fact, even B cannot read that message because it is encrypted format. So B has to decrypt it. Now, which key B will be using? Of course, the same key, right, which is K1. So A and B both will have the same key, which is K1. Now, it's a different question. How will they share this key with each other? Of course, not on network, right? At the end, we want them to have the same key, which is K1. So now let's say we have one more. We have A and C. So of course we have B there. So if A want to send a message to C, now what type of key A should use? Should A use K1? Of course not, right? Because B has K1. So if A want to send a message to C, or which should not be interpreted by anyone else, A will use a different key now. And let's say we will name that as K2. So between A and B we have K1. Between A and C we have K2. Let's say B and C want to interact. What key they will use? Will they use K1? Of course not. Will they use K2? Of course not. They will need a different key, which is K3. What I want to say is, as the number of user increases, we have to increase the number of keys. And it will be difficult to manage, right? Example, in my pocket, I have to carry 100 keys because if I want to interact with 100 people, I have to manage all the keys. We don't want that. So that's one of the drawbacks of symmetric. Let's move towards asymmetric. Asymmetric cryptography, also known as public key cryptography. So basically we use two different keys here. One is private key and one is public key. So what is this public key and private key? As name suggests, everyone will have two keys. Let's say A want to send a message to B, B send a message to C. So on this network we have multiple nodes. Each node will have two keys, the private key and a public key. So A will have its own private key and public key, B will have its own private key and public key, C will have its own private key and public key. If you want to encrypt and decrypt the message, you have to use both the keys, not one. So to encrypt a message, you can use public key, but to decrypt the message, you have to use private key. If you are using a private key to encrypt the message, then you have to use a public key to decrypt the message. So you have to use both the keys at the same time. You can't simply say, I will encrypt with public key and decrypt with public key. That's not possible. So we have to use both. So if you are encrypting with private, you have to decrypt with public. If you are encrypting with public, you have to decrypt with private. How do you achieve security here? So let's say if A want to send a message to B. As we know, the public key of B is known to everyone, public, right? So of course, A will also know the public key of B. So what A will do, A will encrypt the message with B's public key. And then that message goes to B. Of course, everyone else on the network can see that message, the encrypted message, but no one can decrypt it. You know why? Because that message will be decrypted only with B's private key. And who has B's private key? Of course, only B, the private, right? So you will know your private key and everyone else will know your public key. So that's how you do it. So how to achieve security? Encrypt the message with public key and decrypt the message with private key. Let's do it again. So let's say C want to send a message to D. So which public key C will use? So C will use a public key of D. So C will encrypt the message with D's public key and D will decrypt the message with its own private key. So that's how this cryptography works. But now the question is, what is that key is? Is it a number? Is it a text? That we'll discuss in a separate video. We'll talk about how exactly to get a key. So that's it from this video where we have talked about types of cryptography. In blockchain, we'll be using the public key cryptography. We use that.
So that is how to distinguish between the asymmetric and symmetric keys in simple terms. Now, the key concepts. So the encryption and decryption simply means you have your message. What is cryptography? You have typed it or you are sending it to somebody. So before you send it, you will have to convert that plain text into what is called protected text, we commonly known as ciphertext. The same, if you are sending a ciphertext to somebody, then that person will have to use a private key that was shared with for them to be able to decrypt that into back to a plain text for them to be able to read. So for instance, we have searched what is cryptography. The Google search engine will have to convert that plain text into a ciphertext, then communicate with the DNS, DHCP, that's the Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, and then also to the server point. So reaching to the server where the answer for what is cryptography is found, the server will have to get the ciphered text and then understand it and then use the SSL and TLS to convert it into plain text for it to understand. what it is. Then after that, it is able now to read the text, find the solution or the answer, and then be able to release it to the internet space, to where the user had made the request. So from your end, you will now see the output or the results showing what is cryptography, and with explanations and other links that are available. Why? Because the entire process has been done. Now, the digital signatures are also some of the keys that are used in cryptographic concepts. What does the digital signatures do? They ensure that the integrity and the authenticity of your work or data or communication is achieved. No one is able to access them and make any modification. Then we have public key infrastructure, the PKIs. These ones, they help in managing the digital keys and the certificate that you have seen us talking about. These certificates are always generated by the server point called the SSL. So the secure socket layer will have to auto-generate certificates that will be used to validate the security of your website, the security of your devices across the internet. If they lack, then they can be stopped or blocked from accessing any resource across the internet. Therefore, these certificates are always generated after a certain period of time. Then we talk about secure hash algorithms. These ones are used for integrity verification to ensure that who has made the request or the text that has been used to make the request is the one that is receiving the feedback. So to authenticate and verify is also another process that happens within the server area or the systems that have been linked to communicate together. For instance, you want to log into a certain Wi-Fi. Then you see that after placing the password, there is another process that takes place, authentication and verification. Why? Because it has to identify whether the security of that internet is much better to allow your data to be accessed through the system. If it finds that it is not protected, then it will be able to give you a warning that do you wish to connect with this Wi-Fi? This Wi-Fi connection is unsecure. Then you'll now be able now to choose yourself whether to access it or not to access it. We normally have what is called secure communication protocols. What are they and what are they made up of? So we have the TLS or SSL, which stands for the Secures Web Browsing and Email Communications. And I've already talked about secure socket layer within the TCP/IP connectivity. Then you have the VPN. I talked about the VPN using the virtual private network, where it has the ability to encrypt internet traffic for secure access. So when you're trying to access some content from other different countries where you cannot be able to access it, then the VPN can be able to help you. Why? Because it will have to encrypt your IP address and hide it from the rest so that it can be able to allow it to penetrate the secure area that was available there and that was restricting you from accessing such content. Then we have the SSH, that is securely access remote systems. For instance, you are accessing this computer through a remote systems. Maybe you are using TeamViewer to access my computer and you want to connect with it. Then it uses what is called the secure socket hash algorithm sections for it to be able to do that. Then we have the PGP and the S-MIME. Normally, these ones are used in email encryptions to ensure that your email is more secure as you share them. And once it is not found, if these ones are not detected within your email, then that's why you normally find that some of your emails have been grouped as spam. Why? Because it has not passed through all the security measures with the PGP and the S-MIME, and also the SSH and SSL. So once that one is detected, then it's automatically being categorized within the spam section and giving you warnings that this email is not safe and secure for you to do what? To access within your device. Unless you trust the sender, that's when you can be able to click and access it. So let's look at the cryptographic attacks and countermeasures that exist. So there are some common attacks that normally happens to any system, whether it is your devices, whether it is your WhatsApp, whether it is your website, and so on. Especially websites or platforms that handle transactions or money. So we have brute force attacks, we have man in the middle attack, that is the MITM, and then we have the replay attacks, and then we have the quantum threats. So that's why you are always required to ensure that you protect your device. The other day we talked about protecting your WhatsApp and other devices because these are the common communication channels that you use every day. It is so unfair to leave you exposed, yet you think you are secure and safe in your communication. Because data breach can easily happen with that space. Then you have the countermeasures. What are the countermeasures that you can be able to apply in order to stay safe against any form of attacks? Use strong encryption, use secure key exchanges, use multi-factor two-factor authentication, and then you can use the quantum resistance techniques. So 2FA, you saw it how to activate it, both in your email and as well as on your WhatsApp. The same as is there in your in your SMS and all other communication channels. So you have always to ensure that is well managed and protected. Even social media platforms that you might be using, you must be able to activate two-factor authentication to ensure that you are much secured. What are the applications of cryptography? So cryptography is much important because mostly they are used in securing all our websites, all our devices, all our applications, all the channels or the shareable concepts within the network, because both the hypertext transfer protocols in the secure environment, which is the HTTPS, the TLS, and the secure socket layer are always used within the website sections or any web app application. So any system that is accessed through the internet is always secured using these protocols. Then the blockchain and cryptocurrency areas. You've heard about bitcoins, you've heard about forex, you've heard about all these cryptocurrencies and so on. So all this is when we're talking about when dealing with e-wallets, you need to ensure that the system that you are doing transactions with is completely and highly protected to avoid you being hacked, phishing attacks, and for your money being transacted by somebody else. And they are much common. The banking sector and secure transactions. So all the banking sector have always to ensure that they protect the transactions that their users do. That's why sometimes they have the applications and so on. But then we mess around ourselves by number one, sharing the security codes that are being generated, sharing your pins and passwords with friends, relatives, and whoever it is. So you'll find that now, at the end of the day, your accounts are much exposed and they are not well protected. So for us to do this, you have to ensure that you have your password is kept secret and only disclosed to the authorized person that you feel like this one is much uh, supposed to access such systems. Then we have the secure messaging apps. For example, WhatsApp, Signals, even TikTok, social media platforms. You have to ensure that SMS, all of them needs to ensure that you have the SSL being done. That's why when you're sending emails, when you're sending messages, when you're sending WhatsApp, it will always tell you that this message is end-to-end protected. So it's very important for us to note that so that you don't become a victim. Then government and military communications. For instance, DCI, GSU, KDF, fraternities, and all these military wings. All of them needs to protect all our data. But then you'll find that sometimes the same bodies will rush to the communication and telecommunication bodies such as Safaricom, Airtel, Vodafone, Glo, and all those others that are used across MTN. They go there and ask for them the data, your personal data, so that they can be able to track you and also be able to find what is your location and so on. You saw what happened during the Gen Z time when people were being identified where they are and issues can be done. So all this needs to be protected. So let's look at the application of cryptography in WhatsApp and meta services.
Billions of people around the world are now using apps to send super secure messages every day. WhatsApp, iMessage, Android's Messages and Signal all use a remarkable piece of technology called end-to-end encryption. Other popular apps like Telegram and Messenger also offer the feature. But by the end of 2023, Meta says Messenger will switch over to full end-to-end encryption as standard. So all text, media, and calls will be end-to-end.
A privacy-focused messaging platform has to be encrypted.
Meta also plans to roll it out for Instagram direct messaging too, and Twitter's also building end-to-end in its app. But as privacy experts celebrate the trend, governments are increasingly worried. So why are they so worried about it? Well, it's because of how clever this secure technology is. Let's say that I'm the server of an internet company, and these people are trying to send messages. Sending readable information over the internet is a pretty bad idea. Anyone that intercepts the messages could read them. So these days, nearly all the information we share over the internet is encrypted, which means it's scrambled and therefore protected from prying eyes. A bit like putting a note in a locked box. The messages are protected when they leave us, processed by the app server, and then sent on to the recipient. But with most forms of encryption, the company can unscramble this data. They have the keys to read our messages. At any point, the company can open up our chat history and share them with others, for example, the police. Criminals are routinely caught and prosecuted because police are able to access messages in this way. Hackers or bad actors too are sometimes able to access our unsecured data. End-to-end encryption goes a step further. Messages are encrypted, but only the sender and the receiver have access to the keys. It's like sending a box that only you have the key to open. The messages are protected, even from the app company, which means that end-to-end encryption protects your texts, media and calls from everyone. Internet companies, hackers, even police.
This means that people can truly exercise their right to freedom of expression, right to privacy, without fear of unwarranted surveillance, whether by the private sector or the public sector. At the moment we allow any kind of access to encrypted communications, there is no way to ensure that only the people that we want to be accessing these communications will do so, because it is effectively a security vulnerability that could be misused by a range of bad actors and malicious actors, whether state or non state, which is why it's important to not enable any kind of access at all.
But as ever with technology, privacy and security collide. The so-called Five Eyes countries are all against the technology. Japan, India, Turkey, Bangladesh, Brazil, and the European Union have all expressed concerns too, with some exploring laws to control the apps. In countries with strict internet rules like China, many end-to-end encryption products are already banned.
What's concerning is that if platforms make the design choice to roll out end-to-end encryption, we risk losing the vast majority of that data that's used to find perpetrators and protect children.
It's a debate that's raged now for years, with neither side wanting to budge.
You concede that there is harm, correct?
I concede that there are trade-offs and that there are challenges to law enforcement. And of course, my heart goes out to the victims of any...
Well, I'm not so interested in your heart, actually.
Many security forces and politicians around the world are calling on tech companies to introduce some sort of technical backdoor into end-to-end encrypted apps, a way for police to gain access to messages if they suspect criminal activity. Another solution is something called client-side scanning. Pictures and videos are scanned by an app whilst on the sender's device to check the content against a database of illegal material, for example, child abuse imagery. Client-side scanning was famously suggested by Apple on its devices to combat the spread and storage of child abuse material. But the idea was dropped after a huge backlash from privacy campaigners worried about the misuse of potentially invasive technology by criminals or even oppressive governments. In spite of the concerns, more and more companies are turning to the tech, saying it's crucial to protect customer data. And one thing that's true but never really talked about by the technology companies is that end-to-end encryption takes away a big chunk of the thorny and costly issue of content moderation. If they can't see what their users are sending to each other, they can't moderate it.
So, what is the future trends in cryptography? You've heard the story about Zuckerberg, Meta products. Meta products comprises of WhatsApp. You have Messenger. You have Instagram, and you have Facebook. All these are Meta products. Then SpaceX has X, or normally the previously known as Twitter. And all these are communication channels that we normally interact with and use every day. So there's a lot of information within that. And therefore, it's very important that the integrity, authenticity, and confidentiality is much enjoyed by the users before they get exposed to unauthorized access areas. You have seen how certain governments, officials, or the military or security agents do. Sometimes they have to walk into these technology companies, request for your data, and then they do what? They are able now to unlock and check and identify all information about you. That's why you see, like in various countries, we are talking about data protection acts being established and enacted to ensure that your personal data is not accessed by any other public person. When you look at health, all the data protection, by the time the doctor opens up to tell you something, you must have given a consent towards it. Therefore, because all the doctors and all the medical sector is protected by the HIPAA rules, the Health International Data Protection and Personal Data Access Point or information agencies. So to ensure that all this is well managed and protected. You don't just shout that this person is HIV positive or whatever without having a clear mind. That's why even if it is your child, you cannot be told what is ailing that child unless the child is asked, can we tell your dad or your parent? In that case. Therefore, quantum cryptography is also a future trend in cryptography. Why? Because we use post-quantum encryptions to ensure that we protect the information and the data being used. Then you have homo, homomorphic encryption, which uses the concept of computation on encrypted data for it to protect your information. Those are the future trends and where the technology is moving to ensure that protection is at a higher level. Then we have the zero knowledge proofs. This is where very information or the verification of the information without revealing the details is being done. And then we have AI driven crypto analysis. Why? Because all the AI tools enhances the cryptographic security. And that's why you'll find that somebody saying that how safe is my data? No, you can only access the data if you have given consent or if you have shared. That's why we say that AI driven systems are all protected and they are built by the laws and data protection acts. They cannot allow misuse of data within that platform. Therefore, as I end, I wish just to make conclusion here that cryptography is crucial for security, modern digital communication, and all other concepts as related to that. And also, it helps to protect against cyber threats, ensuring that all your data integrity, all your secured information is well protected and nobody just accesses them without some consent on it. Then, for us to understand cryptography principles, it is very essential for us to have the crypto security professionals, people who have worked with these systems, like we are building systems, we are accessing systems, we are building servers, we are accessing servers, we are deploying systems and applications, so we understand what happens internally and outside the platforms as far as cryptography and security of systems is concerned. Therefore, just to ensure that you protect yourself and your devices while in the internet, ensure that you follow and you master the cryptography rules. And always ensure you activate your two-factor authentication, you encrypt all your data within the systems, you do all the security setups for your SMSs, for your emails, for your WhatsApp, and also for your phone calls so that you are completely and well protected. Uh, that makes the end of my presentation today. Maybe I welcome one or two questions on that, what we have discussed. Thank you. Any query on that areas? Hope that now from today you are going to work so hard and so close to ensure that all your devices are well protected against any infringement by any user. As you access the internet space, always ensure that you first of all check on the security of that space. Before you fill a form or anywhere, always ensure that it has come from the authorized and verified sources to avoid any issues. So thank you so much. Unless I have a question from your side. If there is none, then we can end the session there so that I can take a rest. You can as well as take a rest. We meet tomorrow. Sorry, tomorrow. Tomorrow is Friday. Yes, we can meet tomorrow so that we handle another area. Goodbye, and may God bless you.
Good night. Thank
Yes,
Thank you. Good night.
so much welcome.
Good night, boss.
Goodbye. Father, the time has gone. I know you need to rest. Yes, I think we have ended that. We meet tomorrow.
Thank you.